3 heads, old yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. This gives us Qian, heaven, as our first primary trigram. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. As said, the bottom trigram will be read as solid, 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 which is Qian, heaven. We're getting the trigrams and descriptions from Hilary Barrett's I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I-ming commentary. Qian is superhuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change in what endures within it. He confronts us with the truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Our top trigram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Dewy lake or marsh above Qian heaven gives us Hexagram 43. Once our first line transforms from an old yang to a young yin, that'll give us broken, solid, solid. For a supporting hexagram, and broken, solid, solid is Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available, or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Xun, wind or wood, beneath dewy lake or marsh gives us hexagram 28. You will get the titles from I-ming's Taoist I-ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Hexagram 43, he calls parting, detachment from discriminating consciousness, repelling the energy of external influences. And 28 as a supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, is 28, excess of the great. Following desires, delighting in externals, inability to control strength. We will read first from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. 43, our primary hexagram. Picture of the Ice King that my daughter drew some years back now. She's quite the artist at this stage. Not that she wasn't then. Hexagram 43, deciding, is what Hilary Barrett calls hexagram 43. Key questions. What do you stand for? How do you define yourself? What belongs in your realm, and where do you need to make a clean break? Oracle. Deciding. Tell it in the king's chambers. With truth, call out. There is danger. Notify your own city. Fruitless to take up arms. Fruitful to have a direction to go. The old Chinese character for deciding shows a hand holding up a token, asserting your identity and right to be heard, even in the king's chambers. This is where decision begins, at the very center of power. That center might be inside your own mind and yet still not feel safe. Declaring the truth loud and clear is dangerous. It stirs up old ghosts, inner and outer. Yet better this than ignoring and neglecting them. As the message of the decision spreads out from the center, it is fruitless to take up arms. This is a time to communicate, not fight. It will serve you better to focus with clear intention on what you're moving towards, rather than what you're reacting against. Image. Lake above heaven. Deciding. A noble one distributes riches to reach those below. She dwells in power and virtue, and also shuns things. A lake above heaven is a cloud, sharing the blessing of rain and always pure, never in contact with the mud. The noble one's generosity is like this, a pure, inspired expression of her character, without ulterior motive. She gives and also knows what to stay away from. Sequence. Deciding follows from hexagram 42, increasing. Increasing and not reaching an end must mean breakthrough, and so deciding follows. Deciding means breaking through. As more and more is poured in, the limits must surely break. Instead of traveling with the cycle from increase to decrease, you take a positive decision to use and share the blessing. Pair. Deciding forms a pair with hexagram 44, coupling. Coupling means meeting. Supple meets firm. Deciding means breaking up. Firm breaks up supple. Hexagram 43 has 5 firm, unbroken lines, pushing out a single supple line, open line. They embody an assertion of identity that breaks through indecision. In hexagram 44, the single open line finds its way back. And our supporting hexagram 28, excess of the great, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hilary Barrett calls great exceeding. Key questions. What is overloaded? What have you outgrown? What must you do? Oracle. Great exceeding. The ridgepole warps. Fruitful to have a direction to go. Creating success. When you exceed something, you cross over a line and make a transition. The traditional Chinese house has a structure like an old-fashioned tent. Uprights support a horizontal ridgepole, and all the weight of roof and walls is suspended from there. Here, the ridgepole's limits have been exceeded. The supporting framework is no longer adequate to the weight it's asked to bear. This means stress and also a greatness of spirit and purpose that goes beyond the scope of the situation. It is fruitful to have a direction to go, to reach out imaginatively and explore. Since things cannot hold up as they are, there must be movement. Image. The lake submerges the tree, great exceeding. A noble one stands alone without fear, withdraws from the time without sadness. Water should sustain the tree, but an excess will drown it. Interaction and communication should sustain you, but too much will be overwhelming, drowning the natural growth of your spirit in a flood of demands and expectations. You cannot possibly absorb all these demands and preoccupations into your own identity. You would only lose yourself. So a noble one is not afraid to stand alone, nor is she depressed at leaving society behind. She is moved by an inner purpose and not a product of her environment. Sequence. Great exceeding follows from Hexagram 27, nourishment. With no nurturance, it is not possible to act, and so great exceeding follows. Great exceeding is the opposite experience to nourishment. Imbalance instead of balance. Overloading the structure instead of living within it. But to be capable of the dynamic action great exceeding requires, you need to be well nourished. We'll jump back to hexagram 43, our primary hexagram, and read our changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. Hexagram 43, deciding, changing line 1. Vigor in the leading foot. Going on without control means making mistakes. You're eager to cross the line and prove yourself, and bring about much needed change. However, this doesn't mean you can sustain the journey your feet are itching to take. Your desire to get underway needs to be matched by a broader awareness of where you're going. Next, we will read from I-ming's Taoist Teaching that he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. This is a nice alchemical commentary. 43, parting. Parting is lauded in the royal court. The call of truth involves danger. Addressing one's own domain, it is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. Explanation. Parting is separating and leaving. In the body of the hexagram, 1 yin is on top of 5 yangs. Yang is about to become pure, while yin is about to disappear. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, harmoniously acting with strength, strong but not violent. It equally has the meaning of using yang to get rid of yin, so it is called parting. This hexagram represents repelling yin by yang. It follows on the previous hexagram, reduction. In reduction, one stills rejoicing and does not rejoice arbitrarily, so as to foster yang and repel yin. using inherent sane energy to repel the energy of external influences. The energy of external influences is invited by the discriminatory consciousness. So if you want to repel external influences, nothing is better than to first part with the discriminatory consciousness. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, the discriminatory consciousness takes charge of affairs. Wine and sex distract them from reality. The lure of wealth deranges their nature. Emotions and desires well forth at once. Thoughts and ruminations arise in a tangle, and the mind ruler is lost in confusion. Because habituation becomes second nature over a long period of time, it cannot be abruptly removed. It is necessary to work on the matter in a serene and equanimous way, according to the time. Eventually, discrimination will cease, and the original spirit will return. The human mind will sublimate, and the mind of Tao will be complete. Again, you will see the original self. But this discriminating consciousness is loved by the human mind. If you want to part from it, it is best first to clarify the mind. Once the mind is clarified, the mind of Tao appears, and the discriminatory consciousness is easily dismissed. Therefore, parting is lauded in the royal court. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. When the mind clearly understands true and false, then the mind is not deluded by the discriminatory consciousness and easily parts from it. But since the discriminatory consciousness has been in charge of things for so long, its roots are deep and its authority is tremendous. One cannot attack it impetuously, but must find the right way between intensity and laxity before it is possible to settle anything. When the text says the call of truth, it means the true mind and genuine intent as the means to amass sane energy. When it says involves danger, it means caution and wariness is the way to ward off aberrant energy. Addressing one's own domain means refining the self. It is not beneficial to go right to war means to wait for the proper time. Once one has been able to amass the right kind of energy and ward off the wrong kind of energy, and also has refined oneself, awaiting the proper time to act, myriad objects are all empty, and there is just the discriminating consciousness alone. Take advantage of the right time to detach from this, and there will be unfailing benefit. The qualities of the hexagram are strength and harmony, serene, without pressure, awaiting the right time to act. This seems to be the secret of parting from yin. And hexagram 28, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. When the great is excessive, the ridgepole bends. It is good to go somewhere. That is developmental. Explanation. Excess of the great means there is an excess of yang energy. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is lake, joyous, and below is wind, entering, going along with what is inside, delighting in externals, following what one desires. When happiness culminates, it produces grief. In the body of the hexagram, inside are 4 yangs and outside are 2 yins. Yang exceeds yin, and yin does not come up to yang. Therefore, it is called excess of the great. This hexagram represents harmonious blending of the medicinal substances in which fullness requires use of emptiness. It follows on the previous hexagram, nurturance of the great. In nurturance of the great, one is strong yet can stop and be still. Stilling strength, not letting yang energy get too excessive, is properly the means to nurture strength. In spiritual alchemy, the path of the gold elixir, we take 2 times 8 ounces of the polar energies and congeal them into an embryo. It requires that the great and small be undamaged, and both realms be complete. If yang energy is too strong and yin energy too weak, then yin and yang are not in harmony, and you lose the path of continual renewal. When yin culminates, there will be decay, and when yang culminates, there will be deterioration. Going on in this way, the trouble of the ridgepole bending and breaking is inevitable. When the ridgepole snaps, the whole house falls down. In the same way, practitioners of the Tao who promote yang too much, who do not know when enough is enough, who can be great but cannot be small, suffer damage to their spiritual house. If you can proceed breezily without becoming too intense, being harmonious and easygoing without clinging, mastering the ability to adapt to changes, preventing danger and being aware of perils, then firmness and flexibility will correspond, yin and yang will balance each other. Though great, you can avoid excess, so that it is beneficial to go somewhere. Consummating essence and perfecting life, you develop without hindrance. We'll now turn back to Hexagram 43 parting and read our changing line 1, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 1 in Hexagram 43 parting. Vigor in the advancing feet. Going, but not prevailing. This is faulty. Explanation. At the beginning of parting from yin, merely adamant and lacking flexibility, impetuously pushing forward, is vigor in the advancing feet. Vigor in the advancing feet not only is incapable of parting from yin, on the contrary, it even fosters yin. So the celestial does not prevail over the earthly, and where there was no fault, one brings about fault by oneself. This is being strong, but not careful in parting from yin. We will also turn to the back and read the commentary section on our primary and supporting hexagrams. These often are even more alchemical in nature. Primary hexagram 43 parting, lake above, heaven below. Moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. Parting is a bursting forth. Above is lake, and below is heaven. Moisture ascends to heaven, then changes into rain, and waters myriad creatures. It is as though heaven is being unselfish and parts with the moisture to let it flow down. This is the image of parting. What superior people see in this is that just as myriad creatures grow when there is moisture in the sky, so are the people secure and peaceful when those above have benevolence. Therefore they distribute blessings to reach those below, causing everyone to benefit from their kindness. To distribute to those below is to distribute blessings. If one distributes blessings unself-consciously, then the giving is great. The generosity is real. This is like heaven covering everything and giving life to all creatures. This is what is meant by the saying, those of great virtue do not consider themselves virtuous. They are companions of heaven. If one is conscious of distribution of blessings being virtuous, this is presumption of virtue. There is still selfishness in the heart, and the distribution of blessings will not endure. This is not to be considered virtue. This is what those who distribute blessings are to strictly avoid. Therefore, superior people view others and self as the same. Distributing blessings, they do not expect any reward. They have virtue, but do not presume upon it. So their virtue grows day by day, while their minds grow humbler day by day. They part with all self-satisfaction and self-importance. This comes about as inevitably as moisture in the sky falls to the earth. Working on the Tao, accumulating achievement and building up practice, carrying out such and such expedients to benefit others, is like distributing blessings to people. But many who carry out expedients to benefit others do so without genuine sincerity. Some do it for reputation, some do it for profit, some make an ineffective outward show of helping people based on ancient models and then blame others when things don't go quite as they wish. These are all cases of having no virtue, yet presuming on virtue, and are not worthy of the name of benefiting others. Observing how heaven bestows blessings on myriad creatures, does it expect any reward from them? Not expecting any reward from myriad creatures, heaven has virtue but does not presume upon it. If even heaven does not presume upon its virtue, how much less is the virtue of ordinary people to be presumed upon? Whenever one does anything for the benefit of others, if one can emulate heaven in not presuming upon virtue, one's virtue will not fail to be great. And supporting hexagram 28, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Great excess. Lake above, wind below. Moisture destroys wood in excess. Thus, superior people stand alone without fear and leave society without distress. Great excess is excess of the great. Above is lake, associated with moisture. Below is wind, associated with wood. The nature of water is to flow downward. The nature of wood is to float upward. When water rises above wood, it can destroy wood. And when wood descends below water, it can be destroyed by the moisture. This is the image of great excess. What superior people see in this is that just as a great excess of moisture can destroy wood, so can a great excess of talent and intelligence in people destroy their character. Therefore, they take the model of water rising above wood in the sense of standing alone without fear, and take the model of wood descending below water in the sense of concealing themselves and being free from distress. Thus, they accomplish the will of a person of exceeding greatness, and perfect the character of a person of exceeding greatness. Because superior people who practice the Tao consider nature and life to be the most important matter, they look down upon all existence as empty of absoluteness, being like a clear lake, unsullied by the dust of objects. They make use of the phenomena of the world to practice the principles of the Tao, playing a unique tune on an individual harp. Unmoved by the prospects of life or death, they stand aloof of all things without fear. Like the flexibility of wood, they have talent but do not presume upon it. They have intelligence but do not rely on it. Though simple in appearance, they hold a treasure, concealing their illumination and nurturing it in obscurity. They do not seek to be known to others. They are hidden in a profound privacy and have no distress. Having no fear means that one cannot be constrained by things, having will and energy far beyond that of others. Having no distress means that errant thoughts do not arise, and one has cultivated development far beyond that of others. Because of having no fear and no distress, one can accomplish that which is rare in the world, and be beyond the perception and beyond the reach of ordinary people. We'll now read from James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, where he synthesizes several I Ching commentaries into one helpful place, which he has right online, and I've left links to his site where you can read further. We'll just be quoting some of the things that pop out, but there is much more if you want to go look. Hexagram 43, James Dekorne, who is a practitioner of the Tao himself. At the end, he puts in his own notes and paraphrases, which are incredibly helpful. And throughout, he gives often some really good quotes from things like the Kabbalah. Hexagram 43, which was Parting by I-ming, he calls resoluteness. Other titles might be Breakthrough, the symbol of decision, resolution, determination, parting, removing corruption, eradication, judgment, leg, recognizing the risks involved in criminal prosecution. Justice demands a resolute proof of the culprit's guilt in the royal court. One informs one's own city that armed force is not necessary. In this way, progress is assured. Blowfold resolution. When a proclamation is made at the court of the king, frankness in revealing the true state of affairs is dangerous. In vital matters, frankness may prove dangerous. In making announcements to the people of his own city, it is not fitting for the ruler to carry arms. It is better to repose trust in our own people. It is favorable to have some goal or destination. Lu, determination. Someone is proud in the king's court, and the king trusts him. If one exposes the truth, danger. It must be told to one's own people. Using force does not benefit. It does benefit to do something else. You must decide how to deal with a situation before it reaches a dangerous point, or things will take their own course and overwhelm you. Ritsuma/Karcher, parting, displaying, tending towards kingly chambers, conforming, crying out, possessing adversity. Notifying originates from the capital. Not harvesting, approaching arms. Harvesting, possessing directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of separation and diverging directions. It emphasizes that resolutely dividing your energies is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary 1. Parting is lauded in the court. The call of truth involves danger. Addressing one's own domain, it is not beneficial to go right to war, but it is beneficial to go somewhere. The royal court is the abode of the mind ruler, where true and false are distinguished. The image. Leg. The image of the waters of a marsh mounting over heaven forms resoluteness. The superior man, in accordance with this, does not hoard his wealth, but shares it with his subordinates. Wilhelm/Baines, the lake has risen up to heaven, the image of breakthrough. Thus the superior man dispenses riches downward and refrains from resting on his virtue. Ritsuma/Karcher, above marsh with respect to heaven. Parting, a Junsu or chief son or superior person or sage, uses spreading out benefits to extend to the below. A Junsu uses residing in actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. Actualized Tao is ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos. It's linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being, what it is meant to be. Cleary 1. Moisture ascends to heaven, which parts with it. Thus do superior people distribute blessings to reach those below, while avoiding presumption of virtue. After people get mixed up in temporal conditioning, we read this in I-ming's Taoist teaching, so I'm not going to read it again. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Resoluteness is the symbol of displacing or removing. We see the dynamic lines displacing the magnetic line. The figure displays the attributes of strength and cheerfulness. There is displacement, but harmony continues. The exhibition of the criminal's guilt in the royal court is shown by the magnetic line mounted on 5 dynamic lines. The awareness of danger and the appeal for justice makes the matter clear. If he has recourse to arms, what he prefers will soon be exhausted. When the advance of the dynamic lines is complete, there will be an end to displacement. Leg. Resoluteness represents the 3rd month when the last vestige of winter, represented by the 6th line, is about to disappear before the advance of summer. The single yin line at the top symbolizes an inferior man, a feudal prince or high minister who is corrupting the government. The 5 yang lines below are the representatives of good order. The lesson of the hexagram is how to remove corruption from the kingdom. He who would do this must do so by the force of his character more than by the force of arms, never forgetting the dangerous nature of his undertaking. He must openly denounce the criminal in the court and awaken general sympathy to his cause. Among his own adherents in his own city, he must prevent any tendency to resort to armed conflict. As a worthy statesman, he is not motivated by private feelings. Hu Bing Wen says, if but a single inferior man is left, he is sufficient to make the superior man anxious. If but a single inordinate desire be left in the mind, that is sufficient to disturb the harmony of the heavenly principles. The eradication in both cases must be complete before the labor is ended. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Resoluteness involves astute discernment of what is wrong and a discreet reestablishment of order without polarizing the situation. Be clear in your own strategy, but let common sense be your guide about how much you need to disclose to others. Avoid aggression at all costs. The superior man maintains equilibrium by distributing his energy equitably. He smooths things out. The 43rd hexagram is an image of the eradication of an inferior force from the situation at hand. 5 yang lines resolutely advance on the single yin line, which is about to be pushed out of the hexagram at the top. This is a negative image of the 23rd hexagram, disintegration, which shows the opposite situation of 5 lower yin lines undermining 1 upper yang line. It is instructive to compare the nearly identical messages for the superior man in the images of each of these figures. The idea is one of fostering an equitable distribution of energy within the situation. Disintegration and the resoluteness required to rectify it are extreme situations requiring extreme measures. Such extremes must always be neutralized through a justly distributed balance of forces. A quote from Plato in the Republic. It's not the concern of law that any one class in the city fare exceptionally well, but it contrives to bring this about for the whole city, harmonizing the citizens by persuasion and compulsion, making them share with one another the benefit that each class is able to bring to the commonwealth. And it produces such men in the city not in order to let them turn whichever way each wants, but in order that it may use them in binding the city together. Compare the nuances of meaning in each translation of the judgment. Wilhelm's is most radical, advising a direct, albeit dangerous, expose of what is wrong. Most of the others imply room for discretion about what needs to be revealed. Diplomacy is the art of knowing when full disclosure only prevents resolution of the problem. Ritzema/Karcher allude to the proper mindset required to manage such situations. A Chansu uses a chief son or superior person or sage uses residing and actualizing Tao, by consequence keeping aloof. To reside in actualizing Tao is to live directly from one's essence. And when this is associated with keeping aloof, we get an image of quietly rectifying a situation without revealing our purpose or strategy. Almost makes me think of the Hermit card with the light inside but aloof. Psychologically interpreted, resoluteness, like disintegration, depicts an extreme situation which must first be rectified, then prevented from reoccurring through the maintenance of a just balance of power, which is administered by the ego under the will of the self. God damn. And now our supporting hexagram 28, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. James Dekorne calls it critical mass. I-ming called it, again, excess of the great. Other titles might be preponderance of the great, the symbol of great passing, excess, the passing of greatness, great surpassing, great gains, experience greater than great, greatness and excess, dominance by the mighty, the passing of greatness, excess of the great, law of karma. Judgment, leg. Critical mass depicts a weak beam. Under such conditions, it is advantageous to move in any direction whatever. Success is indicated. Wilhelm/Baines, preponderance of the great, the ridgepole sags to the breaking point. It furthers one to have somewhere to go, success. Blofeld, excess, the ridgepole sags, it is favorable to have some goal or destination in view, success. A glance at the hexagram will show that it is too heavy in the middle and too weak at the ends. A number of firm lines is generally auspicious, but there can be too much of a good thing. Ritzema/Karcher, great exceeding, the ridgepole sagging, harvesting, possessing directed going, growing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of your connection to a ruling principle. It emphasizes that pushing the guiding idea beyond ordinary limits and accepting the results is the adequate way to handle it. Clary 1. When the great is excessive, the ridgepole bends. It is good to go somewhere. That is developmental. When the ridgepole snaps, the whole house falls down. In the same way, practitioners of the Tao who promote yang too much, who do not know when enough is enough, who can be great but cannot be small, suffer damage to their spiritual house. The image, leg. The image of trees beneath a marsh forms critical mass. The superior man, in accordance with this, fearlessly stands alone and stays retired from the world without regret. Wilhelm/Baines, the lake rises above the trees, the image of preponderance of the great. Thus, the superior man, when he stands alone, is unconcerned, and if he has to renounce the world, he is undaunted. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes a forest submerged in a great body of water. The superior man, though standing alone, is free from fear. He feels no discontent in withdrawing from the world. This is suggested by the component trigrams. Water is necessary for the nourishment of trees, but too much of it can cause serious damage. Cleary 2, moisture destroys wood, developed people, etc. Only when sustained by the power to stand alone without fear and avoid society without distress can learning be firmly rooted and development have a proper basis. Then it is possible to refine and support the mediocre. Wu, marsh covers over wood. This is excess of the great. Thus the Chunzi, or chief son or superior person, or sage, stands alone without fear and withdraws from the world without melancholy. Confucian commentary, Confucius/Leg. Excess is weakly supported at either end, with weakness in both the lowest and topmost lines. The dynamic lines are in excess, but 2 of them are in the central positions. The trigrams of flexibility and satisfaction indicate that there will be advantage in moving in any direction whatever. There will be success. Great indeed is the work to be done during this extraordinary time. Leg. Extraordinary times require extraordinary skill in their management. The figure shows 2 magnetic lines at top and bottom, with 4 dynamic lines between them, giving the image of a great beam unable to sustain its own weight. Lines 2 and 5 are both dynamic and central, however, and from this and the attributes of the component trigrams, a good auspice is obtained. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. A stressful situation is best managed with a comprehensive strategy, or, in the chess game of life, one succeeds by planning several moves in advance. The superior man serves the work by going his own way, regardless of public opinion. Wilhelm titles this hexagram Preponderance of the Great. I prefer R.L. Wing's paraphrase of critical mass as more evocative of the figure's meaning in modern terminology. In critical mass, 4 dynamic lines lurk inside of the hexagram, weakly contained at top and bottom by 2 magnetic lines. This energetic concentration could explode in an unpredictable release of force, and hence the judgment tells us to move now. Remember, non-action is also action, to avoid unwanted consequences. Often the outcome is predictable. Be prepared to just walk away if and when that is your best move. Legg's translation of the judgment is, it is advantageous to move in any direction whatever. This is a different message than Wilhelm's. It furthers one to have somewhere to go. Legg's version implies an almost hysterical flight from danger, while Wilhelm's rendition suggests prior intention and planning. The latter interpretation is definitely what is meant here, as confirmed by Cleary's Buddhist commentary. When the transformative path is flourishing, contaminations easily arise. It is best to set up guidelines and regulations. When meditation work is advanced, ignorance is about to dissolve. It is best to exercise the mind skillfully. Coupled with Cleary's translation of the image as developed people stand alone without fear, avoid society without distress, the idea is that one should follow one's best intuition and ignore popular illusions, political correctness, or inner fears. Psychologically, a conventional thinking, socially conditioned reflexes, knee-jerk responses, etc. During a time of critical mass, pay close attention to direction from the self to preserve the work. This is not the time to follow the crowd. Sometimes this can mean that you are obliged to go it alone, one of the work's frequent tests. A quote from G. Knight in A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism. The gulf is something that has to be leaped, and leaped alone, stripped of all hindering burdens in faith. It is thus one of the crisis points of spiritual progress because of the great temptation to turn back from the unknown to the apparent safety of known things, and to succumb to this temptation is to lose all the fruits of past endeavor. Suggestions for meditation. Compare the judgment and image of this hexagram with those of hexagram number 32, consistency. Anthony, we must regain modesty through the effort to rid ourselves of strong elements that cause us to press forward. The strong elements may exist in someone else, causing them to assault us with their fear, mistrust, or doubt. Strong refers to impetuous movement to resolve what is ambiguous. We can meet the challenge by remaining detached and letting things go through their changes. To be truly rich is to remain modest. To be truly powerful is to remain reticent. All right, we will get back to our primary hexagram 43 and read our changing line 1, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 1, leg of hexagram 43. The first line dynamic shows its subject in the pride of strength, advancing with his toes. He goes forward but will not succeed. There will be ground for blame. Wilhelm/Baines, mighty in the forward striding toes. When one goes and is not equal to the task, one makes a mistake. Blofeld, to set out with a great show of strength, advance, but win no success is shameful. That is, we should not voluntarily and somewhat boastfully take on a difficult task unless we are sure of success. Lou, power in toes moving forward. If one goes and lacks ability, he makes a mistake. Ritzema/Karcher, invigorating, tending towards the preceding foot, going not mastering, activating faulty. Slofnacy, mature in the front foot, to go will not be victorious, but will be trouble. Cleary 1, vigor in the advancing foot, going but not prevailing, this is faulty. Wu, he has strong toes. If he acts in a rash way and is not able to get his job done, he will be blamed. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, without being able to succeed, he goes forward. This is an error. Wilhelm/Baines, when one goes without being equal to the task, it is a mistake. Blofeld, this illustrates the shame involved in taking on something and then failing. Ritzema/Karcher, not mastering and also going, fault indeed. Cleary 2, to go without prevailing is faulty. Wu, acting in a rash way with no ability to get his job done is a mistake. Leg, line 1, the first line in the lower trigram of strength is in the lowest place in the hexagram. The stage of the enterprise is too early and the preparation too small to make victory certain. He had better not take the field. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, at the outset, the man presses forward prematurely without sufficient preparation and strength. Initial setbacks due to blind miscalculations are grounds for blame. Wing, despite strong resolve, beginnings are the most difficult and dangerous of times. Be certain that you are equal to the task that you have in mind. A mistake now could become an insurmountable setback. Better rethink this one. Editor, compare this line with the first line in hexagram number 34, Great Power, in which an almost identical idea is presented. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. Work addiction, the manager disease, the compulsive need of always having to do something in order to appear busy, also indicates the inability of modern man to find a meaning in life. James Dekorne breaks changing line 1 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, don't force the issue. You aren't equal to the consequences of your impulses. B, don't bite off more than you can chew. All right, we will now get a randomly card-drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching and try and sum this puppy up. So our primary hexagram 43, parting, had lake above heaven, so moisture. Oh, it was, dewy lake or marsh above heaven, which symbolized a cloud in the sky, and heaven being virtuous, I think it said, with and helpful with its moisture, and didn't presume on the virtue. So it was very much a distribute all manner of benefit to those below, without any presumption of virtue. And then hexagram 28, our supporting hexagram, excess of the great, showed water above wood, which can be disastrous. And it also showed that the idea of a ridgepole of a tent holding up the whole house, essentially bending to the point of breaking. And so the idea there was that it's good to go somewhere in that situation because staying in the same place isn't even really an option at this stage. Then our changing line 1 showed that there was almost like an eagerness in the big toe to take to the challenge of something that one was unable to take on the challenge for, which was dishonorable, essentially. Trying to bite off more than you can chew, that idea. Anyway. Chapter 64 in the Tao Te Ching we will read, and my translation is by Jiafu Fang and Jane English. Peace is easily maintained. Trouble is easily overcome before it starts. The brittle is easily shattered. The small is easily scattered. Deal with it before it happens. Set things in order before there is confusion. A tree as great as a man's embrace springs from a small shoot. A terrace 9 stories high begins with a pile of earth. A journey of 1,000 miles starts under one's feet. He who acts defeats his own purpose. He who grasps loses. The sage does not act and so is not defeated. He does not grasp and therefore does not lose. People usually fail when they are on the verge of success. So give as much care to the end as to the beginning. Then there will be no failure. Therefore the sage seeks freedom from desire. He does not collect precious things. He learns not to hold on to ideas. He brings men back to what they have lost. He helps the 10,000 things find their own nature, but refrains from action.